You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I love that you can see this little face talking whenever you talk.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, isn't it?
It is creepy, but like in the best way.
So, stereo is pretty cool. It's like a newer thing. So what I like to do with it, like I'll cut it for the show. So don't worry about like being fancy right now. I mean, we'll invite people. I don't have like a lot of followers on here. I have a cat and a baby in my bed.
That's kind of best case scenario in life, right?
Yes. So this is like one of the first shows I've done where I don't have my husband or my oldest daughter here to take care of anybody. So I'm just like hoping it goes really well.
I believe in you. Well, it's honestly a good topic subject matter if you're going to be interrupted by your cat or your baby.
Yes, we may have crying or whatever, but anyways, I can edit anything out. So we are good to go. She seems to be sleeping. She ate, and the cat is in heat, but that's okay.
That's hilarious. So does she like make those really weird noises that cats make? I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like they make some weird noises when they're like sexual.
She definitely is. She's kind of a whore right now, but that's fine.
Can relate. Yeah. I'm just kidding. How old is your daughter now?
So, well, I have two older daughters, and then my third born, my youngest, is 7 weeks old right now.
Oh my goodness. Wow. You just had her. I feel like I don't know why my brain it had been a little longer, but wow, 7 weeks. You were even doing a thing?
She was late in coming. Like,
okay.
So yeah.
You were expecting her sooner?
Much sooner. So we ended up having her in a hospital, which was not the plan, but she just wouldn't come out.
You know, some babies are stubborn.
Yes, but she's a pretty good baby. So she is sleeping right now. So I'll definitely like edit this or whatever. So I don't know if you're familiar with Stereo app. It's kind of cool.
I've been looking around on it for the past couple of days since you told me about it, because I'm like, this is interesting. Yeah. What does this do? And then it was cool because it's like people can send you cheers. It almost reminds me of like the live function of Facebook, but without video, which is cool because now I can just be topless and no one knows.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's honestly, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look like garbage tonight, but I can talk.
My mouth still works.
Yeah. So we'll do that, and then I'll just cut it for Gingerarchy. But so I'm going to do this weird intro thing. I'm going to start recording here in a minute, and then we'll go from there, and I'll just ask you questions. Like, I'm super chill, but I'm really excited about like asking you questions because these are topics that I'm like really interested in. So I'm going to start recording in a second, and I'll do something weird, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
I'm totally down with weird. I'm in from here for it.
Okay. I'm going to start now. Hello, my lovelies. Welcome to another episode of Gingerarchy. You can follow me, Trisha Stewart Mann, on most social media sites, and you can go to We Are Libertarians and find my show there. Tonight, I have a very, very cool guest. Her name is Brittanie Gold, and I would consider her a peaceful parenting expert and somebody that has a super cool corner in the voluntarist market of child rearing. So welcome, Brittanie.
Hi, I'm so excited.
Hi. Hello. Yes. So I know that you're an anarchist, and this channel has some people that are unfamiliar with what that is, and it might be a little scary to them. So tell me a little bit about how you came to be an anarchist, like what your journey was to liberty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love telling this story because it's so interesting, right? So I was like very political, and I feel like you and I, we identify similarly because I actually listened to a show of yours recently where you were talking about how you worshipped Rush Limbaugh at some point, which I find to be hilarious. For me, it was Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck, but yeah, I know. It's really embarrassing now. But like growing up, I grew up in like a military family, so it was very like pro cop, pro gun, like very, very militantly conservative. Mm-hmm. And those were the only political people. So it was like, I guess if I'm going to care about politics, I'll be a Republican. And then I did that deconstructing thing that like young adults do where they're like, wow, my parents were wrong about everything. I am a communist. Like, I don't feel like I ever was like a complete communist, but I definitely was like, wow, like we should care about people. And like, what about the roads? You know, like I went into that whole, like, why do we not, like, why are we just caring about rich people? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, we're so poor. Like, why are we propping this up? And then I was like, wait, yeah, I guess this road does lead down to like me just being entitled to other people's stuff, which is technically, I guess, kind of stealing. So it's like, where do I fit? And I read a couple of Russell Brand books, which is very random, but like, cause he's not a philosophical anything, but he actually is. He's fucking brilliant. If you listen to his podcast or anything, he's like a very smart man.
I listened to him
and
Jordan Peterson once. Yeah.
Both of them are brilliant. And they actually did it. Yeah. They actually did a conversation together, which was like magical, beautiful material. So, it's so good. So good. So anyway, I started listening to him and I feel like a lot of things he was saying was really resonating with me. And I feel like he's very intelligent. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm like this other weird way where I just don't want to vote. And but I care about people, but I also don't want to force anyone to give me their money. Then I started reading, or I heard an excerpt from The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose, which I love saying because he's like, he gets credit for this a little bit before knowing him personally, which I do now, and I love him. But I was literally a fangirl. I paid to talk to him the first time I ever talked to him. This is not a joke.
That's awesome.
And so I followed him forever, right? And I was like, I can't even be one of your 5,000 friends, and I'm so sad. I sent him like all these fucking messages. It was really embarrassing. But yeah, so I watched all of his YouTube videos, and I was like, this is it. This is me. Like, cause he's like an average everyday person. He's saying things in average everyday language, and what he's saying really makes sense and resonates for me. And then I like fell completely down the rabbit hole. I zoomed straight past Ron Paul conservatism. I actually did an interview for my college paper about like why Ron Paul shouldn't even be in the Republican Party because he was too weird. So like,
that's awesome.
Hilariously, I went straight from that kind of conservative to like weirdly ANCOM for like a week to completely accepting anarchism and voluntarism. And that was like around the time my oldest was like around 1. So like probably 6.5 years ago. So for 6.5 years, I've been an anarchist, which is cool.
You know, like that's the coolest journey. And I've never been a Ron Paul, that didn't bring me to liberty. Not that I don't appreciate some of what he did or whatever, but that was not like, I just went straight from like the Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh conservative to an anarchist within 6 months too. So it was just like, I followed logical conclusions. And also I do love Larkin Rose, which a lot of people listening might not know him. So on the We Are Libertarians network, we have newer listeners, like newer libertarians, people interested in it. And then here on Stereo, the same. So if you don't know who he is, he's just an amazing anarchist, and don't let the word anarchist scare you. So go to YouTube or wherever and watch some of his videos because they're pretty cool. So definitely like a big fan as well.
Yeah. It's honestly embarrassing. Like I was embarrassingly a fangirl.
You sent him messages. Did he answer them?
No. So I kept I would comment, and sometimes he'd like my comments, and I'd feel so like, if this seems ridiculous now that I actually like know him, he's like been to my house, like we are friends. But in the beginning, I was literally just a fangirl. I read his book. I was like following him on Facebook. I was like sending him messages out like, to me, things that are interesting about liberty. I'm like, you should talk about this because it's interesting to me. And like not thinking of the fact that he gets like a billion messages. And also he's like the least technically savvy human being has ever graced the internet. So like I had no idea about that. I was like, wow, he has like a huge following. He's really brilliant. Like obviously he has people, or he's like really good at using his Facebook. And obviously he's just avoiding my message or whatever. And then like found out later, after kind of becoming friends with him, he's like, wow, you wrote me this like really long message like 6 months ago. And I was like, sure did. And then he ended up like helping me get into Anarchapulco and everything after that. So it was totally like water under the bridge. But yeah, it was super, it's embarrassing now a little bit, but not really, because I'm like, he really did change my life. Like, becoming an anarchist changes your life. It changes your whole approach to life. So
I would agree. It colors everything I do, and it was always what I was looking for. It was always a lens. I was looking for the lens of truth, and it pretty much gave me that. So no, I totally
right.
get
So you
that.
didn't have to defend yourself anymore. Defend your terrible, terrible ideas.
Right. And
like,
I
oh,
didn't
why
have
is
to
Bush taking us to war? Like, I don't know.
I,
There's a good
Brittany,
reason though.
I totally get that, because it was like, there was a time in my life when I would defend things, and honestly, in my heart, I knew that I didn't have a defense of them, and I didn't know why I was defending them. So I would just parrot what I've heard. It didn't come from a place of truth. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah. So when I discovered anarchism and voluntarism, I was like, oh, well, I can actually defend what I believe, because I actually believe this, and this is a place of truth. So it was life-changing.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first time I talked to Larkin, I sent him one message. I'm like, hey, will you do this debate with my friend? He's like, debate? Anyways. But yeah, so if you guys have never heard of voluntarism or anarchism, look up Larkin Rose. He has some wonderful videos on YouTube. He has some great books you can buy. Support him. So he's pretty awesome. Love that guy. Okay, so I wanted to talk about with you, because it's your area of expertise, would be a couple of different topics. One is peaceful parenting. So a lot of people don't understand what that is. So what do you define peaceful parenting as, Brittanie?
So I define peaceful parenting probably a little more loosely than other people would, but I like to encompass all of the different varieties of peaceful parenting in my definition. So I would say it's any type of parenting that comes from a place of non-coercion and relationship-based interactions and consent-based interactions, up to the point of safety. So it's like, if it doesn't impact safety, consent should always be involved. So like, for example, my child hates her car seat sometimes, but like, that's non-negotiable because it's about safety. But if it's something else, like my kid doesn't want to eat asparagus for dinner, well, that's a conversation, because that's not really a safety situation, you know? So it's stuff like that, coming from a point of consent and non-coercion.
That actually makes complete sense. I've never actually heard it described that way. So, I have two older children. They're teenagers now, and I kind of raised them a little bit in a statist environment. And then when I discovered something called free range parenting with Lenore Skenazy, I did change a little bit. So I became a little more open-minded. But one of the things that was hard to let go of, which I was raised with, was saying no to your child. And I know you talk about a place of safety. What do you think about saying no to your child?
That's a hard one. So I am someone who firmly believes in no, but I would say I reserve it for serious circumstances, and my children both take it very seriously. So I'm not the parent saying, oh no, don't touch that. Oh no, don't go there. Oh no, don't, like that. You'll not hear, if you're around me on any given week, the chance that you will run into me using a no is unlikely, because I try to find a yes. And I think it's really a reframe of whatever a mainstream parent would do, a conscious parent can do with the reframe, right? So it's like, I don't want my kid to touch the oven, but I'm like, no, don't touch the oven. I would go stand in front of the oven and say, the oven is hot. You're not going to touch the oven. That's not the same thing as no, don't. It's more like, hey, I'm going to inform you that this is a safety boundary, and I'm going to personally enforce it. So you don't have to listen to me saying no and try and like conceptualize what that might mean when your brain is really not functioning at that capacity. Like, I'm going to show you with my physical body that this is a boundary that you can't cross. Whereas to me, no would be like, if my child was, for God forbid, got away from me and was running into the street, that's when I would use a no. Because to me, that's a moment where it's like, you have to honor that this is a very important thing that's happening and taking place. And because you haven't heard it from me so much, there's a much higher chance that me shouting the word no at you when you never hear that from me is going to make an impact. It's the same thing as like in an adult relationship. If your partner's always like, sure, honey, go out with the girls. Sure, honey, do this thing. And then it's like, oh, it's, my mom's birthday. I really want you to come. And they're like, no, don't go out with your friends tonight. It's my mom's birthday and I really want you to come celebrate with us. You're going to take that no super seriously because you're like, you always say yes. You're always understanding. If this is a no for you, like, I get it. It's really just relationship based. So it's like, do you say no in your relationship? Of course you do. But do you try to say yes as much as you can if you love that person? Also, yes. Does that make sense?
That's interesting that you say that because it's kind of a Christian principle, actually. And I know that you were kind of raised in a Christian based environment, but there's a scripture that says, make your yeses yes and your no's no's. And I think that a lot of times we don't. We make them mean nothing. So I think that's pretty cool that you say that because it's like, if you're going to say no, make it mean something. Don't just constantly say it. Like make something affirmative. Be important, and the same with saying no to something.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of my biggest pet peeves, like in the parenting world, like what I see as far as like, I wouldn't call myself a parenting expert, but I would say I'm a well-read parent, is watching parents beg their children. Like that is so, it grosses me out so much because it's like, no one likes to be begged. Like people don't want to stay in relationships where they're begged. Like if I'm in a relationship with a man and he's constantly, please, come on. Can't you just, oh, that's so annoying. Nobody wants that in a relationship, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. It grosses you out. It makes you not want to be in that relationship, And so it's like, it's the same thing with children. It's near to the relationship we have with our kids. Cause it's like, when I see parents being like, come on, won't you please get in the car? Can't you please do it? Won't you, it's like this weird begging thing. And it's like, no, we don't have a conversation about things that there is no conversation to be had, right? So if it's non-negotiable that you're getting in the car right now, I'm just going to say, you're getting in the car. Do you want my help or can you do it yourself? Yeah. And if they don't answer, that to me means you would like my help and I will help you get in. But there's no begging. It's just, this is what we're doing. Okay, it's happening, And I ask a question, I genuinely am going to take your feedback. So I'm like, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Then like you have the opportunity to like express what you'd like and we can have a negotiation. But if there's no negotiation, like I don't even offer it because I don't get in that weird power struggle begging thing with my children. I think it's very weird.
No, and I think that's actually pretty common in like an American culture. But I did want to touch on something which is a hot topic. And that is the topic of spanking. So I think a lot of religions teach parents that, or I guess the way that people view the religion, teach them that they should spank their child if they do something wrong. And I'm against spanking because I don't think that you should hit any person if you're not defending yourself. And obviously you're not going to need to defend yourself against a child. But what would you say about that? Yeah, you're bigger than them. So
you're right. I feel like it should go without saying, but for some reason it doesn't. So so I came from, I think maybe we came from similar backgrounds, but I came from a background of a very strong Christian family, again, where it was a sort of spare the quote unquote rod, spoil the child. And so spanking is like the Christian thing to do. And it's so fun because I've just dug into that so much, into the root words in the actual Hebrew language where that was used and what like the rod would have meant. And the rod is of course the rod of wisdom, the rod of discipline, which I always tell people, discipline means making disciples. How do you make a disciple? You teach, right? You don't make a disciple by beating people over the head and then hope they, follow in the direction that you're barking because they're scared, right? Like that's not how to make a disciple. So it's like, for me, I can always counter that with like, how many times did Jesus hit people who didn't, go along with his plan or didn't believe what he was saying was truth or whatever? It's like never, 0 times. There are 0 instances of Jesus hitting people for disagreeing with him. So I just feel like it's just a silly, I hate the religious argument because there's literally there's no space for it. It's completely about discernment.
I would quite agree. And if you want somebody to follow you or learn from you or believe the same thing you do. Oh, look, we've got some.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I was like, what? I thought it might have been like, I think it might have been I thought it might have been like comment. So I was like, oh, is that a
It
comment?
is.
And then I just started playing.
Hold on a second. Let me see. Okay. I'm not getting their questions, so we'll have to wait a second.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it does it like that. Okay.
It started playing and I was scared, so I just stopped it.
Yeah. It's fine. It might have been a question alarming on your end, but that's fine. If you get it again, just play it. We're good. Like, we're not super fancy here, so.
Okay. Well, anyhow, so it's just so go ahead, ask me what you're gonna ask me. Clarify.
Yeah. So, like talking about that, I think it's really difficult for people to understand that concept, and they think that it's somehow being a weak parent, like not spanking your child, or the idea that you're not going to say no, and not necessarily.
I think you're going to fall into permissive parenting, which to me is just as bad as authoritarian parenting, where you're like beating people all the time, trying to keep people online. To me, they're like opposite ends of the same spectrum. It's kind of like saying, is it worse to be a Nazi or be a hardcore communist? It's like, yeah, they both kill people. Like, well, let's not compare like the two worst things possible. Like, yes, if you do nothing, let your kids do whatever, never have boundaries, never have expectations, of course, you're going to have the worst, most rotten, terrible children that no one wants to be around. Great. One of Jordan B. Peterson's great rules for life, which I completely love and totally agree with, is make your children people you want to be around.
Yes.
Because PSA, you're going to fucking be around them.
Yeah. You know what's funny too? I have two girls that are older besides my child, that 16 and 13. And I think, and I'm a peaceful parent, and I think that they're people that other people would enjoy being around. Like, they're great people. So I laugh when people are like, if you don't spank your kids, I'm like, yeah, you would like my teenagers. You know, they're good people. Like, they work really hard. They don't like sit and badmouth people. They're not obnoxious.
And honestly, that's so great. But even if they weren't, like, that wouldn't change your ethical. Yeah. And I used to tell people that. I said, even if it turns out my kid is like miserable to you, random Karen, like, I'm at least living my ethical value, which is that I'm not going to hurt defenseless people. Be them, you know, old ladies, like my own children, like, if they don't have a defense and recourse against me, even if they're really making me angry, I'm not going to hit them. Because that's like my own ethical value.
That's a good comparison too, because I tell people a lot, like, can you reason with somebody? If you can't reason with them, why would you hit them? Because they're not going to understand why you're hitting them. And if you can reason with them, then reason with them. And use that same ethic that you would with an older adult that might be maybe a little bit mentally deficient or have dementia. Now, so obviously their mind is not working the same way yours is, just like a child is learning and growing. Would you hit an elder? Would you hit them if they were being unreasonable? Obviously not. Right. That's abuse. So why would you do it to a child? It's really strange that we have this concept that you can hit people and make them do what they want to do. And I think that is going away a little bit in society, which is a good thing. But
totally. But it's really like, I was just to go back, kind of circle back to what you were saying before. It's like people say like, oh, it's like lazy parenting. I'm sorry. There is no deeper self-work that I have done as a human being than learning to cope with my child triggering me, making me feel very angry inside, making me feel that then I've had to do that self-work to be like, I'm not going to have a reaction right now, even though I want to throw you through the window. I literally want to pick you up and throw you through the window, but I'm not going to do that because I am a mature, responsible, calm adult, and I'm going to show you what it's like to be a reasonable, calm person. And it's so difficult. I mean, all the time there's so many, and I would love to be a spanking parent sometimes. I would love it. Because I'd be like, no means no, bah, you know, and then they'll just shut up because they're scared. You know, it's like and I look back on my own childhood and I see so many instances like of, you know, my dad's side of the family, you know, they got a lot of compliments about how so well mannered we were, because we were like told, you know, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, you know, thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir. Like, that's how you talk to people. And it was like militant, right? Like, if you just said, well, you know, they were like, do you like this Pop-Tart? And they were like, you're like, yeah. they'd be like, yeah. And you'd be like, oh, yes, ma'am. I love that Pop Tart, right? It was like a correction constantly, like this overriding thing of like respect and say the right things and all this. And I think sometimes to myself, it's like I had so little true impulse control, and I was completely just regurgitating whatever I thought would like get me out of trouble in the moment, whatever I thought I was supposed to do. I didn't have any real respect for the people I was yes ma'aming to death, you know? And and now with my daughter, I can see in certain circumstances where she literally has so much respect for the way that I see the world, where she'll just like ask me for my input on like things where I'm just like, and I didn't ask anyone what they thought about this thing when I was 7, you know, I just like thought about it in my own head and then shut it down. Like, don't ask anybody about that. Keep it in your own head, you crazy person, you know? And so I feel like the proof for me is really in the pudding. Like, I know that I have an honest relationship with my kid. And even though it's so difficult sometimes to be the person who has the self-control, because all spanking parents are doing is saying, you pissed me off with that thing you did, and now I'm going to piss you off with the thing I'm going to do. It's like the eye for an eye, eye for an eye, eye for an eye over and over again. That is easy. It is much harder work to say, you know what you deserve right now, when you just, like, my kid will do this thing where she, like, you know, when she was like more when she was younger, but she would get really mad at me, and she would kind of like throw something that like was like an important toy or something, and she just throw it down, like kind of be like, I didn't care about this because I'm so mad about whatever the thing was, you know? And I would, and she'd not necessarily break it, but she could potentially have broken it. And I would pick it up and I'd be like, this thing like matters to you. Like, why are you hurting it? You know, and have the conversation about it. And it takes so much effort to do that versus like throw it down even harder and be like, oh, now it's broken. That's what you get. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the way I was parented. I feel like I was parented in a way that was like, just get you back for whatever thing you're doing that I don't like, instead of it actually being like, how should you have handled that? Well, I'm going to handle it that way. And to show you how you should handle it, instead of joining in on your chaos and being chaotic myself.
No, exactly. So it's being reactionary instead of being proactive as a parent. And with teenagers, I can say, like, there's a lot of times where I want to dismiss what they say because I think it's very small and it doesn't matter in the long run. But at the same time, I have to realize that it matters to them. So I can't dismiss their feelings. So it's the same thing in like a grander scale, I suppose. With teenagers, where I'm just like, okay, well, this matters to them, so I need to address it because it's important to them, even if I think it's super minuscule and not important in the grand scheme of life, because it may not be.
Right.
But I can't dismiss it because it's important to them, you know. So it kind of grows and grows from there. Like and I do remember like my parents dismissing a lot of what I would say when I was younger, because it was that reactionary parenting. Well, this is dumb, and here's what I think. And it's like, well, you're not really raising an adult then. You're just trying to raise a person that's mimicking you. And
exactly.
Yeah. So
you're not just open to watching someone grow up. You know, I think that's been my frame of parenting the entire time. Like, I'm your steward on this journey to you figuring out who you are, not I am the person you should model your life after, and you better be just like me and think just like me and do just like me, you know, like acknowledging that you were born a different person.
Well, that's it. You're raising adults. You're not really raising children. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
you're
terrifying.
You're shepherding adults.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It really is. And I have a 16-year-old, so it's super scary.
I can't even know how scary it is for you. I want to think about that. My friends have like 11 and 12-year-olds even. I'm like, no, never, even though I know it's coming.
She's a really great person. But she has decided like that she wants to go to college and be a philosophy major.
Oh, that's so sad and cute.
I know.
Oh goodness, good luck to her.
Yeah, I know. But she does. She's been taking Chinese and is fluent in that. I'm like, just keep doing that because you can work at any company. Like,
You're like, take
yeah.
enjoy your philosophy degree, but just keep on the Chinese. That's the agreement.
Pretty much, my husband and I are like, okay, well, just kind of keep going with that language thing so you can work at a real company and then have fun with the philosophy degree. I don't know.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
But I'm trying not to discourage her, and that's her life and her investment. So I'm a big fan of like letting my children invest in their college. I will help them in whatever way I can, but I'm not going to pay for that. So
I'm going to incentivize not going to college. Be like, here's a bunch of money for you to take a gap year. Here's a bunch of money to start your own business. Oh, you want to go to college? Good luck with that. I'll help you find some scholarships.
It's so funny you say that. It's so funny you say that because I exactly did that. I'm like, well, if you want to do this, and like my daughter works in the same place I work at, and I'm like, if you want to, but she is just adamant. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to be true to what I believe. And if she really wants to do this, I'm going to let her do this. If she wants to take out the loans, but it's just like, I told you didn't have to go. And now you're going to be a philosophy major.
You didn't even have to go. And now you're doing the worst. No, I'm just kidding, not the worst. But that's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah. So who knows what will happen after a year of that, So
yeah, you never know. So true.
So you have basically like a preschool, which is like something you call upschooling or unschooling, which is something I'm super interested in because my youngest daughter, my husband is an anarchist as well. And so I have a really cool opportunity to raise this daughter in a different environment than I did my older two. And we are going to unschool her. And so I think a lot of people that scares the shit out of them. So talk about maybe like what unschooling or upschooling is to you and what you do with your preschool.
So this is a really fun story. So I always planned to unschool my oldest daughter, who is 7 now. I didn't know that I'd be able to because her dad and I stopped being together when she was a little over 1. And he definitely was more just like went along with what I wanted to do in the world while we were together, but doesn't necessarily hold the same values as I do. Whereas my husband is an anarchist on principle, but won't be an anarchist on paper. He's one of those.
Gotcha.
So he's like, I don't know. I'm middle of the road and I don't really care about politics. I'm like, exactly, you're an anarchist.
Yes.
He's like, I don't really vote and I just want people to leave me alone. I'm like, you're an anarchist. But anyway.
Yeah, he's probably more of an anarchist than anarchist.
No, he did like the candles in the dark, like Larkin Rose, like, hey, bring a status and we can show them that they really, truly in their heart are an anarchist. And he completely was like hook, line, and sinker. He's like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. I am. But like still to this day, I'm like, are you an anarchist? He's like, I'm more like, I don't know, libertarian. Like he can't. He's like, no, he can't stomach the label. One day maybe. But anyway, so my youngest, I wanted to unschool her, and I was like, hey, my daughter's dad stole my car, and I was like, now I have no car, so I have no way to have a job. And I was, it was really awesome. Because we had my car in his name because he was older and got a cheaper insurance rate. So that was really awesome when we broke up, and he was like, just kidding, you can't have a car anymore. Have fun walking to your groceries. So that was fun. But that's why anytime anyone's like, oh, you don't deserve what you have, I'm like, literally kiss my ass. But anyway, that's
I've been there. I've been there. Trust me. Yeah.
Walk to your groceries level. But yeah. So
I know what it's like to hide my food in somebody else's fridge because my power got turned off. Being a single mom.
It's so terrible. So terrible. Yeah. So anyway, I was like, how am I going to make this work? I'm either going to send her to the world's shittiest daycare because that's what I can afford, right? That's literally what I can afford. On trying to teach, which was what I went to college for, and I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. Why would I go be with a bunch of random rich people's kids while my kid just suffers in the crappiest school ever? Like none of it made any sense. But I was like, I can't actually afford my life. And I came up with the idea that I was going to just have kids come to me. Cause I'm like, then it doesn't require a car. I'm, pretty knowledgeable about parenting in general, and I have this teaching background so I can, help these kids grow. And I started Upschool in an upstairs apartment, and it was in a not great neighborhood. And I was just like, please trust me. I'm smart and I don't know, well-spoken. And eventually it worked. Right. And like after a lot of error and trial and error, and I have a client now that both of our kids are 7. So she's been in this with me the entire time. And he's still doing all the things that my daughter's doing. So we've been in this homeschooling adventure forever. But yeah, so I've had clients over the years in my preschool, because sort of my whole concept for upschooling was I was dating a guy who was really awesome and super an inspiration. And he was like, hey, unschool makes people like me, who are like regular white people, feel like that's bad, right? Like I want my kids to school. I don't want them to unschool, right? And I said, yeah, I get that. And he was like, why do you call it upschooling? Because what you're trying to do is give them something better than schooling. And you can explain that to them in person, the whole concept of unschooling or Montessori style, like learning. He's like, you can explain that to them in person. He's like, but don't call it unschooling, because that could be like something that really detracts. So I will forever give him credit. He was the one that was initially said, call it upschooling, because that's when you're explaining it to me, that's really what you mean. And I was like, that is what I mean. It is better than unschooling. So
awesome.
yes. So to his eternal credit, he was a brief flicker in my life in the long run. I love him still. He's still my friend, but yeah, that didn't work out. But he was right. He was totally right about upschooling, and as a word and as a concept. And then I kind of just sort of sold this program to parents that was based on basically the non-aggression principle. Like I don't hold children to standards I don't hold adults. I don't expect kids to never have a bad day. I don't expect kids to sit for long periods of time. There's no reason why a child under 5 should be sitting in some kind of weird circle time and be in trouble if they move. Like that's weird. And it's very contrary to how other people run their home childcare, their home daycares, their preschools. Like I just don't do things that way because I don't find it to be helpful or useful or practical. It's like kids just don't have it in them to sit for long periods of time. They're not always interested in letter learning. They're not always interested in number sense. They're not always interested in academics. So to present parents with this like beautiful program that's like, I'm going to teach your kid how to read by the time they're 5, that's unrealistic. Some kids will read by the 5 because they want to, but some kids won't. It doesn't matter how much information you give them, how much you drill them. All they'll do is they'll start to hate coming and being around me. And I'm not ever going to do that. And eventually I got a pretty good reputation for being someone who only offered developmentally appropriate child activities, because that's what I was doing. I just didn't offer children anything that wasn't exactly on par with what they should by their brain development. Like if you actually study the neurological brain development of children, you wouldn't be asking kids to do some of these obscure things that these crazy preschools are asking kids to do. So I just stay on target with what kids' brains are actually able to do. And I got lucky that I have an amazing kid who everyone's always like, wow, your child's like so well spoken and has like great manners and is super kind to others. And I'm like, she's a product of the way she's been raised, so that was helpful for sure. But yeah.
So you've seen like definitely like a positive impact then what you're doing. Like I think that it might scare people initially, like saying that because of tradition and the way that schooling generally is, or preschool or daycare programs. So do you get like some kickback when people figure out what you're doing, or?
I will say that I definitely think there are people who aren't, what I'm offering is not what they're looking for. And I think I really benefit from being very blatantly honest with parents in that, and I think I read well because I think that I have more education and like just generally a higher IQ than most of the people doing the job that I'm doing. And that's not to be like, oh, I'm such a high IQ, but I'm saying generally speaking,
No,
people who end
I
up
worked
in
daycare. I worked in
Okay,
daycare.
so
You're
you
right.
understand, right? Right.
Yes.
So it's like people, it's like a 40-hour certification. You can get it out of high school. And then it's literally just following the government's blueprints of what you're doing, essentially. So it's not a very hard job to come by. And a lot of parents seeing it as like, oh, I can stay home with my kids, so I'll just like learn how to like fake it and put up some posters and like not let kids die, which is nice. Great. Like, I'm sure those people like care about kids on some level. I'm sure that their kids are safe there. That's fine. But like, that was never me. Like, child education, in the same way that healing my trauma of my life, you know, making sure that my children and other children are respected as human beings has been an important part of healing myself and creating another story for myself. And I think I read well to other adults who are like, wow, all the other people that we've spoken to, even directors of great, giant, big, notable preschools, aren't really on par with how she speaks about child rearing or how she speaks about the education of preschoolers. So it doesn't really matter practically what I do, I think, to some of these parents, because they recognize that I am so competent, you know, in what I'm providing and what I believe should be there. And like I said, I'm always open for feedback, but I really haven't had a parent yet say like, well, this is really not working for my, like, they need more structure and they're really not developing. The contrary. I've had kids who said, oh, my child is so delayed and now my child is speaking in full sentences and can do all these new things. And it's like, children want to grow. They just can't grow in an environment that's authoritarian, because they're always going to be told that they're either not doing enough or they're doing the wrong things. Whereas, like, if you're just open and saying, hey, you can just be whoever it is that you are, and when kids feel accepted and safe and loved, of course they flourish from that soil. You know what I mean?
I wish that you lived here in Ohio, because so to that point, have you like kind of made a blueprint for this and like to help other people develop like the upschooling technique or anything like that? Or is there like a network?
Hilariously, it's like my dream to have a method that is mine, right? So it's like there's the Montessori method, obviously named after Maria Montessori, and you know, so and all these other different methods like free range parenting, like you were talking about, it's like nicknamed by a person who coined the phrase, right? So I've always wanted to do that with my life eventually. I did try to, actually right now upschool is being run by my former assistant, who's now the director of my old childcare. I don't actually do upschool anymore because I started a whole new freedom-based co-op for my older, because all the mass craziness, we ended up going in a really interesting and fun direction and kind of serving the needs of parents that, you know, were not willing to subject their children to these authoritarian medical tyranny, weird temperature taking and face covering craziness of schools now. So I ended up starting something completely new, obviously still fundamentally very similar to upschool, but with older children. So it's not exactly the same. And so my old assistant now is completely running upschool. But I had initially actually signed up a mom in the other side of the county that I was living in, to have franchise and do her own version of upschool, and like that I was going to provide her with training and sort of explain to her how to sort of run the day, what the rhythm would be like, kind of what to expect, and kind of walk her through how to solve her problems. Because I think a lot of people are intimidated when they think about like being a peaceful parent, that they're going to have like no control and no say so in what's going on, and the kids are just going to be chaotic. And like, I have the most peaceful, independent children that you can even imagine. They play so well together. We almost never have issues because, like I said, it's really just in the weave of the texture of our, you know, culture, is that we all trust and respect each other. And that starts with me. So I trust and respect them. They trust and respect me. They trust and respect each other, you know? And it's like some principles of my program has always been like respect for others, respect for the environment, respect for each other. respect for our bodies. And so it's like, if you respect your body, then you eat good food. And like, we talk about that. I don't say you need to eat your vegetables. I say, like, do you respect your body and what it has to do for you today? Like, that's an easy way to explain these concepts. So it doesn't have to be authoritarian. So like, where another parent would say, you have to eat your vegetables, you're otherwise you're going to not be strong, and all these other fake things that aren't real. And like, I don't do that. I don't pretend, I don't make these like fake, caricatures of real life stuff. I tell them the real life stuff. I say, hey, this broccoli has, X vitamins and X minerals, and your body needs those. You want to know what that does in your body? Do you want to know what zinc does for you? Do you want to know what vitamin C does for you? You want to know what calcium does for you? Because we can talk about it. It's super important. And like, kids are not stupid. They listen and they hear you and they pay attention, and they're so fast to absorb what's going on. And so you don't have to say, good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's basically treating a child like an adult that just has more things to learn, basically.
100%. It's just a less capable adult. That's literally it.
Yeah.
It's a less capable person. It's not a lower person, a lesser person, a person that needs to be handled. It's not. And I feel like a lot of people and adults in general spend a lot of time, trying to manage the inconvenience of raising children rather than acknowledge the, necessary aspects of, growing a human being into an adult.
Well, it's a lot more work
than just managing them as inconveniences.
Yes.
So true.
Yes. My baby is waking up. She's eating right now, but it's a good thing that we're not on video.
Are you breastfeeding?
I am, but actually we're kind of doing a mixed thing here because I have to go back to work and it's not.
No, the worst.
I know. So I did have a couple of questions for you. Something about in your bio about Waldorf techniques. You use that in upschooling. I'm not sure even what that is.
Oh yeah. So I basically, I'm like pretty well studied in terms of like just different techniques of like things that have helped, children grow just in all of history. I kind of just, I'm like, hey, what have we been doing forever that I can actually see the evidence to suggest that this technique works? And so I studied the Montessori method myself, became Montessori trained, and I started to know how to do that. And then there was so I was going for public ed at some point forever ago in college. And I was like, this is terrible. I'm just like basically a glorified puppet for the state, which is true. I don't care what anyone says. They hand you the material. No. They say, this is what you teach. And it's terrible. And you're like, hey, but I'd really like to spend like a long time on this certain thing because I think it's really important. They're like, nope, 2 days, So I was like, I can't do that, right? And feel okay with myself. So I was like, okay, I'm going to study all of these alternative education methods because I was like, there's got to be, I know that I'm called to teach in general, and I don't know that necessarily I was called to teach children only or just adults, or I don't know that I was specifically called to children. But I do feel like, I was investigating that after college, and I think children felt safe to me. I was always kind of scared of the judgment of adults, that I wasn't really a real adult, or that I wasn't, studied enough to be able to help adults. I've changed that kind of as I've aged. But in the beginning, I was kind of like, well, I do think I could definitely help children. So I studied the Waldorf method. So the Waldorf method, basically the long and short of it is there's a guy actually who ran a factory, and all of the kids that had parents who worked in this factory needed like a school. So he was like, I'll just start this school, and basically use the principles that, he believed were important for childhood, which, were more practical. And so he believed that children needed to spend a great deal of time outside, which is true. Amen. That children needed to do hands-on work. They didn't need to do like hypothetical, imaginative, non-concrete work, which also fits hand in hand with Montessori method, which says that there's no anything outside of the concrete until children cross the second plane of development. So the first plane of development is like, you have to give kids concrete examples because they're not going to be able to imagine in their own head, oh, what is an elephant like, if you don't show them a physical elephant. They can't just cognize it in their own brain, right? So Waldorf had the same idea. He's like, let's give kids a lot of concrete like mediums to like express themselves. So like painting, art, drama, knitting, like, so these were the kind of the sort of like pegboards. Like these are the sort of tenets of the Waldorf method, is to sort of use, you know, it's a holistic method, again, that incorporates the spiritual aspect of a child, the emotional aspect of a child, and also the physical aspect. But when it comes to like training them and educating them, it was more just the physical, giving them concrete things that they could actually see, feel, touch, hear, to, you know, start them on their educational journey, and not pressing quote unquote like hard academics. So a lot of like Waldorf kids don't read until like 7, 8, 9, whereas in a traditional school system 80% of kids are at least reading sight words by kindergarten, right? So it's a completely contrary, just different way of approaching learning. And I just feel like I saw the kids that were coming out of these programs, these alternative programs such as Montessori and Waldorf, and I saw that they were happier, better human beings. And I felt like, and with Waldorf, you know, because it was started by a guy who owned a factory, it was kids from, you know, obviously they had a similar financial background, but they had varying cultural backgrounds, varying geographical backgrounds. So it was very much a melting pot of all these different types of people. And I love that aspect of the Waldorf method, you know, that it's not supposed to be just like some rich kids, you know, getting a really great education. It's supposed to be all types of kids getting a, you know, a very hands-on, holistic education. And so I really like that aspect of it. It was very approachable for a lot of different kids from a lot of different cultures.
I think it's interesting you talk about like reading levels, because having 2 older children that are in public school, just because I share parenting with my ex-husband, so that's just something we have to do. But I noticed like pushing to read at like an earlier level and things like that is something that's like, it's kind of like this, you know, do or die thing. And I've noticed that pretty much once children get to a certain level, they all kind of read the same. And so I'm not understanding like the push to get them to read at such an early age. And I don't know, is there a difference in that, in like the public school method and like the Waldorf or the Montessori method?
So no, I mean, in the long run, like you were saying, in the long run, does it really make a difference if all 9-year-olds can pretty much read? Like when they started reading?
Yeah.
I would say like, I agree. Like, I don't see that there's really a difference. And I feel like if anything, in my opinion, it's always best to like, and you know, this is true for yourself as an adult. It's like, when have you really enjoyed learning something? Has it been whenever someone's like, hey, you better learn how to use this, you know, like, you know, for a job or like for a school assignment, like, oh, you gotta have to use this weird platform to submit your work or something, or, oh, you have to use this new point of sale system to check these people out. Like when you have to force to learn it because it's like, all right, do or die, you gotta learn it. It's so frustrating, right? Versus if you're like, wow, I really wonder how such and such happens, or how I could actually make a cake without using X ingredient because so-and-so is allergic to it. And like, you're actually interested and you just dive into it from that perspective, then it comes to you so much quicker. You know, my daughter would be considered a late reader. She does have vision problems, which we discovered kind of along the way. She does probably have some sort of mild dyslexia on some people's scales, which we've discovered along the way. But all in all, she wasn't interested. Yes. And she did everything early. She walked early. She talked early. She talked a complete sentence before anyone. She knew her alphabet at 2.5. Like, she was ahead in the sense she was always curious, you know, like, you know, just a precocious little kid. And for whatever reason, it just reading was not interesting her and did not come to her. And there was a point in which it was a deep struggle within myself to let go of, well, everybody else's 6-year-old can read sight words and all these things, and your 6-year-old doesn't care. Doesn't. Right?
Well, that's kind of funny though, because that's kind of American culture, and those things shouldn't really matter that much to us, you know.
Oh, well, and it's like, what does she need to read for, by the way? Nothing. Like, she's not doing literally anything that requires her to be able to read. Whereas, like, now, I think intuitively, as she got older and she started playing, like, you know, some, like, Roblox games with her cousins, or Minecraft, she all of a sudden was like, I now have, again, this invisible hand of self-interest. I now have the self-interest to want to read so I can communicate or understand what people are trying to communicate with me when I'm not in person with them. So they're sending me these messages to make these certain things, and I can't read them. And as a parent, I'm team, nope, that's not my job. I'm not reading Reagan's messages to you. You need to learn how to read. And it's not, it's tough love, but it's like, girl, those aren't my messages. I don't need to read them. Sound it out. Can't help, you know? And I think to some level, it was kind of like, she's like, oh, I better learn to read or I'm not going to be able to know what's going on. And so, like I said, because it became important to her in her life, in her personal child life. And I think a lot of kids do that in public school because they're like, oh, it's important to me because all my friends are reading, right? It's more like a peer pressure thing. But because she's homeschooled, it was like there was never other kids that were reading around her. She was like, oh, I'm the only one not reading. This is awkward. It was always just like, well, why do I need to read? You know, I don't have anything to read.
Yeah.
Don't care. And then once she started, it was like, oh, wow, she realized she could read what radio station I was putting on her. She could read, you know, what text messages people were sending me, or she realized she could read. And then once it caught on, it was really interesting to her and she wanted to read. So it's like, I think, like, you know, it just all kind of comes back to like anarchism in general as a philosophy of like, people will do good things and do the right things in most cases on their own time schedule when it benefits them or when they can find a reason to do it. You know, they're not going to just do it hypothetically for no reason unless, you know, they have like the outside authoritarian pressure.
Well, no, that's it. Self-interest is a great motivator, and the state is a poor motivator. You know, you're always going to get worse results being forced to do something that you wouldn't do otherwise. So,
amen. So true.
Okay, Brittanie. So where can people find you if they're interested in your businesses or anything like that, like social media, any of your websites?
So you can find me on Facebook, Brittanie Gold. That's a good way to get in contact with me, and I can kind of like point you in the directions of the things. Otherwise, if you're interested in like learning more about sort of what I do at Upschool, you can find me at the Upschool Children's Cooperative on Facebook, and on Instagram, I'm Upschool Tampa Bay. Because I live in Tampa, Florida.
and I'm stuck in Ohio.
I'm so sorry, honestly. Like, people tell me that every day. They're like, oh, wow, like, what is it like to live in Florida? I'm like, honestly, it's amazing. Like, I don't put too much stock in politics, but DeSantis has, you know, kind of come through for us. I don't know. Like, it's been okay down here.
I was born in Fort Lauderdale and lived in Florida, and now we live in Ohio. So
that's a pretty good
apparently
downgrade.
I hate myself.
Oh gosh, it does sound pretty bleak. No, that's not fair. I actually love the Midwest. I lived in Michigan for a year-ish.
I just hate the weather, but I hate the weather, but I like the Midwest otherwise. But you know, that's like 6 months of the year, so I guess I hate myself half the time. Whatever.
Like 6 months for 6 months is okay living here, but other than that, I hate it. So you can find me there, and then my website for my health and nutrition coaching is getfoodtherapy.com. That's super easy to remember.
Boom.
And that's it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Brittanie. Again, guys, thanks for joining me on this episode of Gingerarchy. And I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I will end this the way I end every episode. And I will say, fuck the state. Have a good one. All right. We'll edit that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. Oh, Brittanie, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
So fun. Yes, you're
Yeah.
wonderful and amazing, and I'm
Oh,
so flattered that you wanted to talk to me.
oh, it was really cool. I actually had quite a few people like interested in peaceful parenting. So, and this will go up on like my regular show. So I'll just share the link with you, and I'll put some of your bio stuff in the show notes.
Sweet.
All right, I'm going to feed this child now.
You better do that. All right.
All right, have a good night.